Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. Carrie Champion here, Skip Bayless in New York City, Stephen A. Smith in Philly. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
I'm great.
Hey, Skip, speak up. Put some bass in your voice, man. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I haven't said a word yet. I get accused of screaming at you too much. So, I still haven't recovered from watching Tiger Woods collapse last night. That's just me.
Don't get me started with that. Don't even get me started.
Well, we'll get you started in just a few minutes because that's a part of our first blog. But first, let me tell the folks what's on the show today. LeBron and David Blatt's relationship. How will this end up? We're hearing too many reports about it. Meanwhile, Des Bryant makes a brief appearance at minicamp, what he did and didn't do. That's all up for debate. We talk about it in this first blog. But first, Mark Stein reports that he has never seen a superstar or a legend in the making, such as LeBron James, behave in such a disrespectful manner toward a coach. We all know that David Blatt is a rookie head coach, but our Mark Stein says he caught too many instances during the NBA Finals where LeBron was not listening. Take a listen.
I think during the series out in the open, there were instances where you could see LeBron upset with timeouts or substitutions or even wanting to make those decisions himself. But the episode I saw in Game 5 in the third quarter, and bear in mind, when you're in the sideline reporter position, sometimes you're in huddles with the Cavs, sometimes you're in huddles with the Warriors. You're not in every single huddle, but in this huddle, I watched Blatt draw up a play and go through the whole thing, and then LeBron just really, with a vigorous no head shake, just a vigorous head shake dismissal of the play, and Blatt looked up and basically had to wipe the board clean and draw up something else. And I just thought that, to be that dismissive of the coach in front of the whole team, it definitely got my attention. I've been covering this league. I've been blessed to cover this league for nearly 25 years. You can agree with my opinion, you can disagree with it, but I can't remember too many examples of star players being that brazen in basically overruling the coach in front of his teammates.
So David Blatt, in response to that, he basically took the high road. He explained how it was an honor and a privilege to coach LeBron when he was asked about this disrespect. Now, this is on the heels of our Brian Windhorst. He reported that LeBron likes having, quote unquote, free reign over David Blatt. So, Skip, I'll give you the question. Will LeBron and David Blatt work next year?
Stephen A., I definitely think they can work if they both really, really want to try this again the way it worked this year, quote unquote. But I now think that the pressure will mount on LeBron James to go to his owner, Dan Gilbert, and demand that Dan Gilbert fire David Blatt and hire a proven and respected head coach. The truth is, for me, Stephen A., what Mark Stein wrote wasn't shocking to me. I said all year on this show, merely by watching television, that it sure appeared to me that LeBron James was the unofficial head coach of this basketball team. And I gave him high marks for it all year. I said when the Coach of the Year voting came out that LeBron at least deserved about third place in that voting because, as you called it, being the de facto coach, it worked. This team got 3 games deep into the NBA Finals and was up 2-1. But just watching TV, LeBron's body language constantly suggested no respect for David Blatt. It appeared to me that LeBron often signaled for a timeout from the floor. Mark Stein reports that LeBron made substitutions, and LeBron, sometimes blatantly in huddles during sideline timeouts, overruled the play that David Blatt had scripted on his whiteboard. So, again, is that shocking? No. But what was shocking to me, and I'm going to reiterate what I said yesterday, Brian Windhorst's point of view about this was shocking to me, in which Brian said, a man who has covered LeBron from the start, from his 8th grade year back in Akron, that LeBron likes having David Blatt to kick around. That, as Kerry says, he likes the freedom of having David Blatt as his head coach, and even suggested that it's almost like LeBron likes having David Blatt as a scapegoat, potentially, as an excuse. It's almost like he shames David Blatt in front of the team, which leads me back to my conclusion, Stephen A. LeBron James, whether he likes it or not, has now completely destroyed David Blatt's credibility in front of the team time and time again. That credibility is destroyed and shot for good to me, which is why it's now time for LeBron, as the leader of this franchise, not just this team, to step up and put pressure on the owner to go get a real coach. Your thoughts?
Well, my thought is, number one, if that's what you're waiting for, then it's not going to happen. LeBron James is not going to pick the coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers. A matter of fact, Skip, I will tell you right now that you have a better shot of LeBron James getting up and leaving Cleveland before he goes and tells the Cleveland Cavaliers he wants to pick who the head coach of the franchise is going to be. That's just not in his makeup. It never has been, and it's just not going to be him now. Now, obviously, Mark Stein does an exceptional job for us. Brian Windhorst has done an exceptional job for us. And I know he knows LeBron James, covering LeBron James, which LeBron James himself has chronicled and acknowledged. But at the same time, I'm going to stand by what I told you yesterday. I think a lot of what Brian Windhorst had to say was absolutely correct. Where he and I part ways, and we talked about this on my radio show yesterday on Sirius XM, Brian Windhorst and I part ways on the notion that LeBron James wants a coach to kick around. I emphatically believe that that is not true. I've been told emphatically that that is not true on many, many occasions by LeBron James himself and others. Because if you remember, LeBron's first year in Miami, there was things going on in terms of the respect that he had for Eric Spoelstra, or lack thereof. But I think one of the things that needs to be pointed out about LeBron James is this. Skip, he is universally recognized as the best player in the world. He has been universally recognized as one of, if not the best player in the world, for pretty much the last 7 or 8 years. Easy. Probably more than that. This guy was coached for the first 7 years of his career, for most of the first 7 years of career. I mean, the Paul Silases of the world, the Mike Browns of the world, not to say that they couldn't coach or didn't know what they were doing, but they didn't have, quote-unquote, star power. They weren't Phil Jackson in Chicago for Michael. They weren't Phil Jackson in L.A. for Kobe and Shaq. They weren't Greg Popovich in San Antonio. They wasn't Doc Rivers in Boston. There were opportunities for the Cleveland Cavaliers organization to step up and to say, we got a mega star in our stable, and we need to do everything we can to give him the best chance to win, as opposed to saying, because we have the best player in the world, we can sit here and be relatively lax in this department. We'll just get the guy that we want to get. These are the kind of things that LeBron James is sensitive to. When you look at David Blatt, I've been on record, Skip, telling you, I think for the most part he's gotten a bad rap. He was a first-year coach. He was going to make mistakes. He was a relative novice, etc. What does David Griffin and them do? Not only do they hire him, but they bring in the guy that was a close number 2 on their list to be the head coach in Tyronn Lue. Okay? So automatically you've undermined the head coach. That wasn't LeBron James. That was the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. Then you're Blatt, and you're 19 and 20, and people are having questions about you, and what do? You go about the mission of trying to win basketball games in the regular season, supposedly, purportedly, because you wanted to prove that you could coach on this level. How do we know that? Because Brian Windhorst, because the Mark Steins, because the Dave McMenamins of the world and others, who, again, do a great job for us, highlighted the fact that this guy has a strong belief in himself. Brian Windhorst said it bordered on arrogance. So he wanted to prove that he could coach on this level. Well, here's the problem with that. You're playing Kyrie Irving 36 minutes a night for 75 games when you know he's been relatively injury prone. So what happens? You got the right foot injury, the left knee injury. The problem is exacerbated. He can give you but so much in the playoffs, and he's even worse in the finals because he ends up going down in game 1. A game in which, coming fresh off those injuries, going to see Dr. Andrews in Alabama, you bring him back after 9 days rest, and you play him 43 minutes and 37 seconds. Meanwhile, you've got people in the Cavaliers organization, meaning on their roster, agents representing the players, etc., highlighting for you that Kyrie Irving durability could potentially be a question mark. You're going to need a legitimate, viable backup point guard for the stretch run for a championship. And your response is Matthew Dellavedova? Come on now. I mean, when we look at all of these different things and we look at some of the moves that have been made, to me, Blatt is stuck in the middle. Because Blatt is a guy who is a rookie, who is a novice, who clearly has a lot to learn, okay, but at the same time accomplished great things in Europe, but he's trying to gain the confidence of his players. On the other hand, he has the complete support of an organization that LeBron James had question about so significantly that he decided that in part that was a reason why he was going to leave Cleveland the first go-round 5 years ago. So all of this stuff is right there. You've got the organization here. You got LeBron James here. You got Blatt in the middle. And I think that it's one of those situations where certainly LeBron James is going to have to say something. Certainly he's going to have to take some kind of position. I don't disagree with you there, Skip. But I think it's important to point out that more so than Blatt, LeBron's problem may very well be with Dan Gilbert and the organization itself. Because remember, he's not there for them. He's there in spite of them. Let's keep that in mind and remember that as we move forward.
Okay. and that I completely concur with you on. Now, back to Mark Stein's reporting. I can only draw this conclusion that LeBron James, in every critical moment, especially in the playoffs, had final coaching say over this team. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not, because I don't believe that LeBron James would have played Timothy Mozgov just 9 minutes and 19 seconds in Game 5.
Okay, but we have repeated instances in Mark's reporting in which during sideline situations, LeBron James made his decision and overruled David Blatt. Maybe not so much, although Mark did say that he did make substitutions himself. So, I mean, who's to say that LeBron didn't co-sign on the Mozgov minutes? I don't know that. Maybe he did.
Listen, if you recall, I told you in Game 2, LeBron James had missed a jumper in late in Game 2. He had missed a jump shot. Mozgov tapped the rebound out. J.R. Smith grabbed it, and LeBron James just called the timeout. Never looked over at Blatt, didn't do anything.
I remember it well.
Just called the timeout, and Blatt was like, okay. So clearly, Mark Stein is absolutely right in what he's pointing out as it pertains to things that happen. But that does not mean that every single coaching decision was made by LeBron James. LeBron James may make an in-game decision about what timeout to call or what play to run. But that doesn't mean he's determining who's playing. It doesn't mean he's determining who's not playing and things of that nature. It doesn't mean that. And there are times, like I've seen, whether it be Patrick Ewing, I've seen Michael Jordan look at a coach and be like, get him out of there. This Isaiah Thomas, get him out of there. These guys got to go. So, you know, Chuck Daly was coaching the Pistons. God rest his soul. Phil Jackson was coaching the Bulls. But that doesn't mean a star can't implement his opinion and his feelings and get a coach to do something in the moment.
Okay, but here's the point, Stephen A. Chuck Daly, Phil Jackson never had their superstars blatantly shake their head during a timeout after a play he had drawn up on the board and said, no, we can't do that. That's not how those teams were run, even with Michael Jordan playing for Phil Jackson. So my point is, I'm saying that has destroyed probably all of David Blatt's credibility with the other players on the roster. So isn't it incumbent upon this team to move on with a new head coach, be it Mark Jackson or Ty Lue or whichever way we talked about possibilities yesterday? Don't you think it's time for that now?
Well, I personally do, Skip, because I want to make it clear that I don't think it's fair to David Blatt, but I do think it's the right thing to do considering the situation. The issue, however, is that I also don't believe it's incumbent upon LeBron James to demand it. I think if you're the owner, I think if you're the GM, you understand who you have, you understand who this player is, what he's brought to this franchise, this city, this area, etc. He's far more important than David Blatt, and I think the mere fact that these issues are being discussed is enough evidence for the Cleveland Cavaliers to say, we need to do this, because I'm promising you this. Do not, maybe this summer for this upcoming next season, because Cleveland is clearly the favorite in the East. But do not think for 1 second that LeBron will not leave again. Do not think, I'm telling y'all, he will leave. Don't you doubt it. If they get on his nerves and they feel like they make him feel like, look, you shut up and play. We're going to do what we're going to do. That's the number one reason why LeBron keeps having opt-outs. He loves his freedom to be in control of his own destiny, because that was the one problem he had with Miami. He was stuck after they didn't re-sign Mike Miller and a couple of other moves when he was willing to sacrifice dollars to make sure he positioned them to do things, and they didn't do that. He was still stuck there. He doesn't want to be in that situation again.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on.